If I told you there was this globally practiced, scientifically backed intervention that increases brain resilience by
Which
19%.
is a huge number, by the way.
Right. Massive. And it has this staggering 96% success rate for alleviating severe stress. But the only catch is you have to take off your shoes and thrash around a room in complete silence. Would you do it?
I feel like most people would immediately run the other way.
Exactly. Because for a lot of you listening, the word dance just immediately triggers a siren in your brain. It brings up, those hyper choreographed, flawless routines you see on viral videos.
Or just a super sweaty, crowded nightclub where you're shouting over a DJ.
Yeah, or worst of all, the absolute paralyzing terror of being dragged onto the floor at a wedding. Because dancing usually feels entirely binary, right? You either know the moves or you're nervously shuffling your feet, praying no one is looking at you.
Which is such a shame because today we are completely dismantling that terror.
We really are.
We're looking at a paradigm shift. We're stepping into a world where the concept of a good dancer or a bad dancer doesn't even exist. Because the objective isn't performance, it's presence.
And that is the mission for this deep dive. We are exploring the worlds of ecstatic dance and the five rhythms. The goal is to completely demystify these conscious movement practices for you.
To show that they're for everyone.
Exactly, proving how exciting, incredibly safe, and deeply transformative they can be, especially if you consider yourself like an absolute beginner who is physically frozen by awkwardness. Okay, let's unpack this.
So to get us started, I want you to just visualize the contrast between the environment you're likely in right now and the environment we're about to explore.
Okay, painting a picture.
Yeah. Think about the typical world we operate in. It's bustling, it's harshly lit, there are screens flashing, notifications buzzing. It's just a constant, chaotic demand for your cognitive attention.
You're always on.
Right. You are always on. Now imagine walking through a door and all of that simply melts away.
Yeah.
You step into a dimly lit, warm sanctuary.
Oh, that sounds nice.
The bass of the music is vibrating softly through the floorboards right into your bare feet. And in this space, there are absolutely no steps to learn.
None at all.
Zero. There is no choreography to memorize. There are no mirrors on the walls. And most importantly, there's no wrong way to move.
Which paints a beautiful picture. I mean, truly. But before we ask you to step onto that metaphorical dance floor, we really need to ground this in the hard data.
Absolutely.
Because conscious dance can easily sound a bit, I don't know, esoteric or woo-woo to some people.
Oh, for sure. It has that reputation.
But the clinical science backing this up is incredibly concrete. Like, let's look at the data from UCLA Health. They surveyed 1,000 conscious dancers across the globe, and 98% of them reported a significant, sustained improvement in their daily mood.
Yeah, and that baseline alone is impressive. But when you filter that data for individuals dealing with severe chronic psychological burdens, the numbers become truly staggering.
Like the trauma survivors, right?
Exactly. Of those participants struggling with severe anxiety or clinical depression, 96% reported that this specific type of movement practice provided profound therapeutic relief.
96%.
Yes. And for those with a history of severe trauma, it was 95%. I mean, we aren't talking about the mood boost you get from a quick jog on a treadmill here.
Right. This isn't just endorphins from a workout.
No, this is a profound psychological intervention that seems to bypass the traditional roadblocks of talk therapy.
And the physical mechanics of how it bypasses those roadblocks are so fascinating. Like, the University of Sydney looked at the actual neurochemistry of structured freeform dance.
What do they find?
Well, they found it doesn't just increase serotonin, the neurotransmitter we know regulates mood and well-being, but it boosts nitric oxide levels in the body by an average of 19%.
19%.
Yeah.
That is wild because nitric oxide is a crucial molecule for your overall neurological architecture. Well, when you increase it by nearly 20%, you are radically dilating your blood vessels. And that improves blood flow and oxygenation deep into the brain tissues.
So you're literally feeding the brain more oxygen.
Exactly. And that translates directly into cognitive resilience. You are physically repairing and protecting the brain from the degenerative inflammatory effects of chronic stress.
Wow.
You're essentially flushing cortisol out of your system and replacing it with the physical building blocks of a calm, regulated nervous system.
Which totally brings to mind the incredible story of Janet Lowe from our sources. She's a UCLA graduate who turned to conscious dance specifically to deal with intense body shame.
Oh, her story is so powerful.
It really is. She articulated something so relatable: how trauma and daily anxiety cause us to completely sever the connection to our physical selves.
Yeah, we just retreat up into our heads.
Right. We treat our bodies like vehicles, just carrying our brains from meeting to meeting. And for her, conscious dance was a way to reclaim her physical form as a woman of color and to reconnect with her inner child.
And she started so small, too.
Yes. She talked about relearning a different kind of body language entirely, starting with something as tiny and safe as just wiggling a single finger to the music and letting that sensation slowly spread.
Janet's experience perfectly highlights the underlying neurological shift happening on these dance floors. Because in our modern daily lives, our prefrontal cortex,
The thinking brain.
right, the analytical, planning, and highly self-censoring part of the brain, it is working absolute overtime. It's analyzing every social cue and regulating every single behavior.
Never shuts off.
But conscious dance is inherently spontaneous. It's inward-focused and entirely self-led. So as you give your body permission to just follow the vibration of the bass, you actually start to starve that prefrontal activity of oxygen.
You literally power it down.
You physically power down the inner critic. And when that analytical brain quiets down, the emotional centers of the brain take over. That's what induces a state of deep psychological flow.
I love thinking of the prefrontal cortex as a very strict, highly judgmental bouncer standing outside a nightclub in your mind.
And that is a great way to picture it.
Yeah, this bouncer overthinks absolutely everything. Are your shoes cool enough? Are you moving to the beat? Is that person over there judging how you move your shoulders?
Judging.
Right. And conscious dance is essentially a mechanism for sneaking past that bouncer through the back door. You bypass the judgment entirely.
Just slip right by.
But let's be real for a second. The science sounds flawless in a laboratory setting. But if I step onto a dimly lit floor, completely sober, and I don't know what to do with my arms, my inner bouncer isn't just going to power down.
No, it's going to freak out.
It's going to blare a siren. So how does an awkward, physically frozen beginner actually survive those first 10 minutes without fleeing the room?
What's fascinating here is that the cure for that initial, intense awkwardness isn't forcing yourself to look cool. And it's certainly not desperately searching for the right move to blend in.
Okay, so what is it?
The way past the siren in your head is to follow a highly specific, structured map of human energy. You don't need steps. You need a framework.
A framework.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And the ultimate framework for beginners was developed in the late 1970s by a visionary movement therapist named Gabrielle Roth. It's called the 5 Rhythms.
Yes, Gabrielle Roth. She observed that human energy universally moves in waves, and she categorized all of our physical and emotional states into 5 distinct rhythms that make up a complete wave.
Which is brilliant for beginners.
It really is, because it gives your panicked brain a task. The first rhythm you encounter is flowing. This is the earth element. It is receptive, feminine, and all about continuous fluid motion.
So you aren't just thrown into the deep end.
Exactly. When you walk into the room, you aren't expected to instantly start jumping around. Flowing is about dropping your center of gravity. You literally imagine your bare feet growing roots deep into the floorboards.
Grounding yourself.
Every movement rolls smoothly into the next. It pulls all that frantic energy out of your racing mind and anchors it heavily into your physical weight.
You arrive in your body. It's an intentional grounding technique. And once you are firmly rooted in that flowing rhythm, the tempo shifts.
Things start to pick up.
Yeah, the music changes, and you are guided into the second rhythm, which is staccato. This is the fire element. It is masculine, driving energy.
A total shift from flowing.
Completely. Where flowing was soft and continuous, staccato is sharp, percussive, and highly defined. You start moving with clear boundaries. It's the physical expression of claiming your space and saying, this is who I am and this is my boundary.
You can actually physically feel the angles in your body when you move into staccato. It's elbows and knees striking out to the beat. It's jabbing, stepping firmly, taking up space.
Right, it's very intentional.
And neurologically, it acts as a profoundly safe way to physically articulate anger or fierce passion. Think about it in our normal lives. We rarely get to express sharp, aggressive energy without causing a massive scene or hurting someone's feelings.
So true. We just suppress it all.
We do, but staccato lets you physically hack your nervous system to safely discharge all that pent-up frustration. And as that sharp, percussive energy builds and builds, it leads right into the absolute peak of the wave, which is chaos.
Chaos. This is the water element.
Hmm.
And it's important to clarify that chaos here does not mean flailing around the room blindly and bumping into people.
No mosh pits here.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
It is a deeply structured, held space to completely surrender and let go of the illusion of control. You release your spine, you let your head hang loose, you shake out your hip.
You just let go.
You let the unpredictable, driving rhythm of the music completely take over the nervous system.
I think of chaos as the puberty of the dance wave.
Ubri, I love that.
Yeah, it's wild. It feels a little out of control. It's definitely sweaty and awkward, but you absolutely have to go through it if you want to grow up and get to the profound stuff waiting on the other side.
You can't skip it.
No, you have to literally shake off the rigid, polite adult ego.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. Gabrielle Roth's entire philosophy was rooted in a very simple premise.
Yeah.
She said, if you put the psyche in motion, it will heal itself.
Wow. If you put the psyche in motion, it will heal itself.
Right. She famously observed that between the head and the feet of any given person is 1 billion miles of unexplored wilderness.
1 billion miles.
Because we live almost entirely above the neck. We ignore the wilderness. But chaos is the rhythm that forces you to traverse that territory. It breaks the dam of stored tension.
And once that dam breaks.
Once it finally breaks, the exertion washes you right into the fourth rhythm, which is lyrical.
Ah, lyrical. This is the air element. If chaos was the heavy, torrential rainstorm, lyrical is the exact moment the sun breaks through the clouds.
It's the relief.
It is lightness, it is joy, it is pure playfulness. After sweating out all your anxiety and chaos, your body suddenly feels completely weightless.
Like you're floating.
Yes. You find yourself expanding, floating, maybe skipping around the room like a hummingbird. You tap into this spontaneous creativity where you aren't thinking about a single thing, you're just enjoying the physical sensation of air moving past your skin.
And as that joyful energy softly peaks, the wave resolves into the fifth and final rhythm, which is stillness.
The end of the journey.
The ether element. And this is crucial. It is not the absence of movement. It is the deep concentration of it. It's slow motion integration.
So you aren't just freezing in place.
No, you are taking all of the intense emotional and physical energy you just excavated and letting it settle into profound peace. You're regulating your nervous system back to baseline.
Just feeling your heartbeat.
Feeling your heartbeat, feeling your breath, and feeling a deep, quiet compassion for everyone else in the room who just rode that wave alongside you.
It is an incredible, exhausting, beautiful journey. And what's really fascinating is how the guided verbal instruction of Gabrielle Roth's 5 rhythms eventually evolved.
It really blossomed into something bigger.
It did. If we track the history from the late 70s into the early 2000s, we see how this very specific map gave birth to the massive, decentralized, global ecstatic dance movement we see today.
The evolution here is deeply rooted in a brilliant blending of subcultures. So in the early 2000s, a man named Max Fathom was living at the Kalani Hanua Retreat Center in Hawaii.
Okay.
He took the foundational philosophy of Roth's 5 rhythms, the wave, the emotional release, and he merged it with the electronic music culture he had experienced at Burning Man.
Oh, that's quite a mix.
It is.
Yeah.
He recognized that electronic music has this tribal driving power to move masses of people, but he wanted to strip away the toxic, attitude-heavy, substance-fueled atmosphere of a traditional nightclub.
He wanted to keep the energy but lose the toxicity.
Exactly. He wanted to scale vulnerability.
Right, but to do that, to take the raw vulnerability of the 5 rhythms and put 200 strangers in a room together without it turning into a chaotic nightmare, he realized he needed to build a sacred container.
And you need rules for a container.
You build a safe container using non-negotiable guidelines. The rules of modern ecstatic dance are the only reason the whole thing works.
Right.
First, no shoes. You dance barefoot to stay literally and energetically grounded. Second, no booze or drugs. This is an aggressively sober space.
Which surprises a lot of people.
It really does. But the entire goal is to generate a natural high from your own neurochemistry and the music. And third, absolutely no phones and no cameras.
That third rule regarding cameras is arguably the most critical for creating psychological safety. Think about the concept of wave-particle duality in quantum mechanics.
Wait, quantum mechanics?
Stick with me here. Subatomic particles actually change their fundamental behavior depending on whether or not they're being observed by a sensor. The mere act of observation alters their reality.
Oh, wow. I see where you're going.
Human beings in the digital age operate on the exact same principle.
It's so true. If you know there is a lens in the room, if there is even a 10% chance a video of you might end up in the background of someone's Instagram story, your brain immediately activates that inner bouncer.
You freeze up.
You instantly start self-censoring and performing. By strictly eliminating cameras, the space guarantees total anonymity.
Yes.
You can truly let go of your ego because, as a matter of physics almost, that your vulnerability is not being recorded.
Which brings us to the final, and often the most challenging, guideline of the ecstatic dance container.
Oh, boy.
No talking on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Zero verbal communication.
Now, I have to admit, when I first encountered that rule, my immediate reaction was deep skepticism. I thought, wait a minute, we are going to a community gathering, a place meant for connection, and you aren't even allowed to say hello to the person dancing next to you.
It feels counterintuitive.
It sounds incredibly isolating and unnatural, but then I came across an analogy that completely flipped my perspective.
What was it?
Think about a group of kindergartners playing in a massive, wide-open field that has absolutely no boundaries or fences. Because the kids can't see the edges, they feel deeply insecure.
So what do?
They huddle together in a tight, anxious knot right in the middle of the field. But the moment you build a strong, highly visible fence around the perimeter of that property, the psychology completely changes.
I know the limits.
Exactly. The children suddenly feel safe because they know exactly where the edges are. They know they are contained, so they run wild and play across the entire expanse of the field.
That is precisely the psychological function of the no-talking rule. In our daily lives, verbal communication is the primary mechanism we use to hide.
To mask things.
Right. We use it to distract ourselves, to project our egos, and to mask our physical discomfort. By removing speech, you build an invisible ironclad fence.
It contains the space.
It transforms the dance floor from a noisy, performative nightclub into a living sanctuary. When you cannot talk, you are forced to actually listen to your physical body.
You can't just joke your way out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't mask your awkwardness with a witty joke or small talk. You just have to feel the awkwardness, move through the awkwardness, and eventually let it go.
Okay, but this naturally brings up the absolute final peak anxiety for a beginner walking into this space.
Which is?
If I am in a dimly lit, silent room, I am barefoot, completely sober, and I'm not allowed to use words, how on earth do I actually interact with other humans?
That's the big question.
Because people do dance together in these spaces, right? It's not just 200 people ignoring each other. How do you navigate something as complex as consent without speaking a single word?
Is a vital question. And because these spaces are incredibly diverse, spanning generations from 18-year-olds to 80-year-olds, the community has developed a very clear, beautiful, and universal mechanics of nonverbal consent.
How does it work?
If you feel inspired to dance with someone, you offer a physical invitation. You might make gentle eye contact, turn your torso toward them, move a little closer into their orbit, or simply extend an open palm.
Very subtle.
Yes, that is how you politely ask for a yes.
And if the person wants to say yes, the response is just as clear. They turn towards you, they might mirror your movement, and the two of you fall into a shared rhythm.
It's very organic.
But what if they are deep in their own internal chaos rhythm? What if they are processing something heavy and they just want to say no?
Saying no is just as clearly defined, and fundamentally, it is just as celebrated.
Celebrated.
Yes. To decline an invitation, you simply turn your body away, move to a different part of the floor, or, and this is the most common and respectful gesture in the community, you bring your hands together at your chest in the universal namaste sign.
Oh, okay.
You give a slight bow of the head and continue your own dance. It communicates, I honor your invitation, but I am deep in my own process and I am dancing alone right now.
And the other person just accepts that. There's no awkward lingering, no offense taken.
No lingering whatsoever. It is a foundational agreement of the sacred container that you respect the nonverbal no immediately and you do not take it personally.
That sounds amazingly healthy.
It is. In fact, there is a profound story from an ecstatic dance community in Texas that illustrates exactly how seriously this is taken.
Oh, I read about this.
There was a newer dancer who was repeatedly seeking attention from someone who was clearly signaling no by turning away and stepping back. The newer dancer just wasn't getting the hint.
Which happens. People miss cues.
They do. But instead of causing a massive scene or allowing the boundary to be violated, one of the space facilitators gently approached the newer dancer and guided them into the quiet foyer outside the main floor.
And what's amazing about this story is that the facilitator didn't just kick the person out into the street or, shame them for being awkward.
No, not at all.
They calmly explained the nonverbal cues that the dancer had missed. But then they went a step further, turning it into a profound teaching moment.
This is the best part.
The facilitator explained that feeling the sting of rejection is a natural, deeply human, and painful experience. But rather than letting that rejection instantly metabolize into shame or anger, they had a unique opportunity.
A chance to process it.
Right. The facilitator invited the dancer to go back out onto the floor by themselves and literally dance with the rejection.
Wow.
To take that heavy, hot, uncomfortable feeling of being told no, locate where it sat in their physical body, and process it entirely through movement, to complete the stress cycle instead of freezing up.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this exact dynamic is why these conscious movement practices function as profound somatic therapy.
It really is therapy.
On that dance floor, you are practicing the physical manifestation of boundaries in a highly concentrated, incredibly safe environment.
Yeah.
You are learning the visceral bodily sensation of saying no to someone else without carrying the heavy burden of guilt that usually accompanies it.
And on the flip side,
Exactly. Equally important, you are learning how to hear the word no or receive the physical gesture of no without your ego completely collapsing into a million pieces.
here's where it gets really interesting. This is not just about becoming a more fluid dancer. This is a literal rehearsal for real life.
A practice ground.
Think about the neuroplasticity of this. If you can confidently set a firm boundary with a complete stranger in a silent room using only the position of your hands and the turn of your shoulders, imagine how much easier it becomes to set a verbal boundary with a demanding coworker
Or an overstepping family member.
or a romantic partner in your everyday life. You are literally training your central nervous system to realize that it is safe to assert its own needs and it is safe to be rejected.
You are building dense muscle memory for emotional resilience. By engaging with the maps of the 5 rhythms and surrendering to the guidelines of ecstatic dance, you are actively rewiring how you relate to your own internal state and how you relate to the collective human beings around you.
So we have gone on quite the journey today.
You really have.
We started by grounding ourselves in the hard science, looking at how moving freely without choreography radically increases neurochemicals like nitric oxide to build cognitive resilience.
Repairing the brain.
Right, and how it starves the strict bouncer of our prefrontal cortex to induce psychological flow. We rode the intense physical and emotional waves of Gabrielle Roth's 5 rhythms.
Feeling the heavy gravity of flowing, the fire of staccato.
The necessary, messy wildness of chaos, the weightless joy of lyrical, and the deep integration of stillness. And we explored how those early maps evolved into the silent, bare-frame, profoundly safe playgrounds of modern ecstatic dance.
Where we rehearse the language of nonverbal consent.
Exactly. So what does this all mean for you? If you are that person who still feels a knot in your stomach at the mere thought of stepping onto a dance floor, how does all of this actually change your paradigm?
It changes everything because it shifts the locus of control away from external judgment and back into your own physical autonomy.
Right, taking the power back.
Our modern hyper-connected world relentlessly demands that we live almost entirely in our heads. We process our entire existence through language, through endless text messages, through emails, and through the glowing rectangles of our screens.
It's exhausting.
We are constantly observing others, and we are constantly terrified of being observed ourselves. But this raises a vital question. What parts of our humanity are we abandoning when we leave the physical body behind?
That's a huge question.
The next time you hear a driving beat, before your brain even have a fraction of a second to analyze the social situation, and long before that inner bouncer can step up and tell you how you should look or whether you're doing it right, just pause.
Just wait.
Notice what your actual body wants to do. Maybe it's just a subtle shift in your weight. Maybe it's a tiny wiggle of your fingers. What if the most authentic, honest, and resilient version of you isn't found in your carefully curated thoughts or your perfectly articulated speech, but is simply waiting to be discovered in the unchoreographed, entirely unpredictable movement of your own 2 feet?